Coming up on Theater Talk.
I think the issues in the play continue to be very current today, whether or not we're talking about dominance over women as a sign of masculinity, or, in my view, you know, a president who believes that we have to be kind of aggressively masculine with North Korea or Muslim countries or whatever. I feel like we are very much Make America and Butterfly again.
From New York City, this is Theater Talk. I'm Susan Haskins, and I am delighted to welcome my guest host for this week, Donna Hanover, arts correspondent for Arts in the City. We are being joined tonight by a woman who is one of the most masterful creative talents on Broadway and in the entire theater world. I'm not exaggerating. Julie Taymor, welcome.
Happy to be here.
Julie's production of M. Butterfly by David Henry Hwang has just opened on Broadway, and in a few minutes we're going to have David Henry Hwang to talk about it. But first, it is the 20th anniversary of Julie's brilliant, and again, I am not exaggerating, production of The Lion King, and we want to talk about that a little bit.
Your production of Lion King opened in '97. Actually, it was based on the animated film from '94. Since then, it's been presented in 63 cities, over a dozen countries, has been seen by 45 million people or more. I think they say that the only continent it hasn't played is Antarctica.
So I was walking down Broadway, I turned the corner, and there's your gigantic Lion King sign, you're just lighting up the sky, and I thought, what goes through her mind when she sees that 20 years later?
Oh, I don't know, probably relief that it's still here.
Oh yeah.
I'm proud of it. I'm proud of that symbol,
Yeah.
that it's a Japanese woodblock style that Disney at the time, Tom Schumacher, Peter Schneider, Michael Eisner, you know, when you say Disney, it's about 2 or 3 people, not a giant corporation for me. And it was amazing that they allowed me to bring my own aesthetic and my own style into something that was already so successfully Disney.
Yes.
So I had a great time. It was one of the most joyous experiences.
Let you make the aesthetics of most of the characters completely new.
That was understood from the beginning, that I wasn't there to be made into a airbrush style artist. You know, I said it's going to be very hands-on, very theatrical. I had done film, I had already been in that medium, but I said if we're going to do theater, it's got to be real theater. I am a sculptor and a painter, so being the designer as well meant that the direction was also built into the design, and that's very important because the actors, you're not Scar without the mask, without the body that creates how you move your body. So it was very important that these actors had what those things were from the beginning of rehearsal, because that's what gave them their direction, very much so.
I think of when you have the grass on the head,
right?
Had the heads of a chorus. Was that something that you had to have for them before they could do that?
No, but that image came from the time I was in Bali, and I went to a ceremony at the top of a mountain next to the volcano that's erupting now, and all the villagers coming from all over the place were carrying their belongings on their heads. So there were these trays of food, of jars of rice, of all kinds of bowls, and these women would just walk up this mountain with these incredible platters. And I, at the time, created a piece, this was before Lion King, where this idea of having the fields, the grass is on your head. So I stole from myself, and I stole from my inspiration from a culture that understands that you bring everything to a ceremony, to a ritual. I think that by the time they got those things on their heads, it probably wasn't the first day of
They knew their
rehearsal.
blocking, right?
They did know their blocking.
Sometimes masks and puppetry can be used to separate the artist from the audience, almost as like a safety, a block. If you think of Punch and Judy or marionettes or something, you use those to give life to these animals, these creatures, almost to give them a humanity.
From the beginning, I knew that I didn't want to cover the faces of the actors. Even though I've done full-out masks, and I don't actually think when a performer is really good, they shouldn't be separating. The mask should never separate. In fact, it should release the interior character of the persona of the actor. But in this case, because the animated film, just look at somebody like Jeremy Irons who's doing Scar. Now you have this incredible animated face, but it's human. All those facial expressions are not animal expressions, plus his voice is really giving so much character. So when I came to this thought of, well, how am I going to do that on stage? If I put a mask on the character, I'm not going to get all that facial expression. I'm not going to get the humanity. So I came up with what I've now call a double event. So the double event is that you get the human actor, and on top of their head is the animal emblem. I guess to explain the concept of the duality, because if you look at everything, whether it's the zebras, you're always aware of the human. Always. I never hid the rods, the strings, or the humanity. There's almost no. There are a few. It's in the trickster section. I Can't Wait to Be King, where they are. But for 90% of the characters, the audience is extremely aware of the human being that is manipulating, moving, that's within. And you could say, oh, well, they're the puppeteer, they're the master movers. They're actually really the spirit. Because if you go back in time to the origin of theater, and this is something that I studied in school, but also I've been very aware of and passionate about, which is the origin of theater is the shamanism, is the shaman. And then we can talk about Rafiki, but the shaman is the person who takes you on that journey, the spiritual journey that will put on a mask and travel deep into whatever, the souls, the spirits of a culture. The origin of theater would be to see a little shadow on a wall. You'd make a little rabbit, you take a little oil lamp or torch, and you see it. And the people who are watching that, they know it's a hand. They know there's a light. They look and they see it's a rabbit. Mm-hmm. And what I wanted to do was to really get back to that essence, to really tap into our DNA, our early DNA. So when people see the opening of The Lion King, they always go, oh, I cried. They get into this thing of why. The story hasn't even begun yet. And I think because...
And yet I can feel it now. I can feel what I felt the first time I saw that elephant come down the aisle.
Okay, so the elephant, there's human beings, 4 of them standing in the legs. We're not trying to hide it. There's no blue screen. It's not movies. It's not TV. That's what touches the audience.
But were you agog when here you are, the master creative spirit, but were you agog when you first saw that come together, that you'd made that? Yeah. And go, whoa, look what I've done?
Oh, well, I and a bunch of other people, I mean, it is a collaboration. Yeah. You can design the hell out of something, but until it's inhabited by the performers, it's not living yet.
When was the last time you saw it?
Let me see. Probably the main full out was Shanghai, which was a year ago.
But Jelani Remy, your Simba, I said, does Julie come around? And he said, yeah, Mama Bird. She comes by. Now, Mama Bird, we've got to
call me? Oh my God.
we need to bring in David Henry Hwang, your latest collaborator. But before we do, we want to take a look at the aforementioned Jelani Remy singing Endless Night from The Lion King, which has lyrics by Julie Taymor. Your talents are endless. Wonderful.
Where has the starlight gone? Dark is the day. How can I find my way home? alone. You promised you'd be there whenever I needed you. Whenever I call your name, you're not anywhere. I'm trying to hold on, just waiting to hear your voice. One word, just a word will do to end this nightmare. When will the dawning break? Oh, endless night. Sleepless, I dream of the day when you were by my side, guiding my path. Father, I can't find the way. You promised you'd be there whenever I needed you. Whenever I call your name, you're not anywhere. I'm trying to hold on, just waiting to hear your voice. One word, just a word will do to end this nightmare. Must clear here, the sun will shine. I know, yes, I know, the sun will rise. Yes, I know, the clouds must clear. I know that the night must end. I know that the sun will rise, and I'll hear your voice deep inside. I know that the night must end, and that the clouds must clear. Oh, the sun will rise. The sun will rise.
I sat night after night watching our story play through my head. One where she returns at last to my arms, for I have known and been loved by the perfect woman.
So we're back here with director Julie Taymor, and we've been joined by the great playwright David Henry Hwang, whose M. Butterfly has just opened on Broadway. Their revival, which is quite different from your original Pulitzer Prize winning play of 30 years ago.
Almost 30 years.
So why, David, did you decide that this was the time to bring this back?
I mean, I feel like I was reluctant to bring it back until there was the possibility of doing a production which might have the same degree of impact and surprise as did the original. And that's a difficult set of conditions to put together. And when Julie, the possibility of Julie came up, I thought, well, this could work if she was willing to do it, because she has such a brilliant visual sense. She knows how to use theater. And then once we started working together, I realized what she's really all about is story and character. That yes, there's spectacle in this production, but there's never spectacle for the sake of spectacle. It's always about serving the story and character. And Julie had a lot of great prompts and challenges and ideas about how to look at the text again, and I realized that that was what I wanted to do too.
But Julie, I heard that you were hesitant to do it at first.
Yeah, for the same reason that David just said, which is certain things that 30 years ago were new and fresh aren't anymore today. And so the surprise, oh my God, you know, in the original that, oh, it's a man. And other things about homosexuality on the stage. It was fresh, it was new, all of that aspect. And what I did was I went and looked at the research that had come out post David's play that was inspired by the success of David's play. And when I read some of the real information,
Yes, the real story.
it was even more shocking, and David didn't know it. And even the fact that there was this opera, Butterfly Lovers, which was right in the middle of that story. And you know, it's not just Madame Butterfly, there's also
It's
this
a
Peking
Chinese
opera.
It's a
Yes.
Chinese opera.
That has gender fluidity, these words. And I said, David, are you willing? Are you willing to actually open it up and start to put in some of the things that really did happen beyond what you already wrote? And he was game. And I just have to say, a living playwright who's already had Tony Awards, Pulitzer Prizes, and a massively successful play opening up their play and reinvestigating it is majorly brave. And I'm saying that in front of you, but it is majorly brave. And we had a great time this year.
So David, you were so prescient in the original Anne Butterfly to write about what I will trivialize as gender-bending issues, gender issues which now are so much more the focus of our culture. What made you pick up on that in the first place, and now how have you addressed the huge sea change that we now have,
Right,
which
well-
you have in this production? Yeah.
Right. Well, I feel like, you know, I lucked out, really, that the original, since it was based on a true story that was about gender confusion, I mean, I suppose I can give myself some credit for having been attracted to that story, but there's no way to tell that story which doesn't involve some sort of what we now call gender fluidity. But then coming back to this 30 years later, you're right, because the culture has moved forward, and it's just what Julie was saying, it's not so shocking anymore to look at the subject matter and what is more complicated today, and the way that we look at gender expression is that there's a range, that it's much more complicated. There's not just male and female. It's not as binary, and I feel like this new production, which also then happens to be consistent with the real facts of the case,
Yes.
allows us to have both. It allows us to be inspired by a few things that are new from the original story, and also feel more resonant with the culture today.
Because we're not just going, oh, well, this woman is really a man, and his lover thought it was a woman, but it's a man. Now you've looked into the real story where you're not really sure what anybody knew. They're changing roles all the time. And the real case in this was a trial because the Chinese lover, man lover, was a spy.
It appears that that person, that Chinese lover, has more of the story than in your original, right?
Yes, I think that's true, that Julie and I really wanted to balance the Chinese point of view more. So, for instance, bringing in this Butterfly Lovers is a good kind of theatrical example of that, that yes, we have Madame Butterfly, but we also have this Chinese opera, Butterfly Lovers, which also obviously has butterfly in the title and deals with gender complexity. And so even as a theatrical metaphor, that balances the story more between the East and the Western points of view.
And you have very astute observations about the role of the relationship between American culture and Asian culture, particularly women back then.
I think we really tried to do in this version, which is very different than the original, is yes, it has complex political issues, sociological issues, fine. But what I was really pushing, and David was receptive to in developing, was the individuality of the characters and their love story. So I think that is different about the one now. They love each other. And hopefully you feel that, but the fact that the Chinese lover was compromised with the spying and all, did that person have a choice?
No, and
Look
you make
at
it very
did
clear.
that person?
Yeah.
And so what's really both moving and tragic about this love story is that perhaps if that story were now, it wouldn't have ended in tragedy. It wouldn't. This man, Gallimard, the fact that he could not live with the reality of who he was and what his love was really has also to do with the times. He could not live with that reality. He would rather live in the fantasy. And therefore, it really questions what is love to begin with, all of it. You know, what do we love about the other, about the person that we're with? Did he love that Chinese lover? Did he? Yes, in a way he did. You can't say just because there was lying that there was no truth.
People often love someone because of how they make themselves feel.
That's exactly right. So I think David's really achieved that in this. I think there is all of the political East-West gender politics and all of that, but at its heart, if you are not moved by Song and Gallimard, the two leads, then you're not taken on a journey. And it had to be personal. And I think David and I couldn't be happier with Jin Ha and Clive Owen.
And I think it's important for people to know that as serious and deep and powerful as it is, there's also quite a bit of humor there.
Yeah. No, I think that's a huge part of the play and how the play is able to be as dense as it is and have as many ideas and also have this love story. But I think Julie and I were really great partners and well suited for each other because she would tend to push towards let's make the relationship more real. What's going on with the love? And then I would push a little more towards but let's not forget, rape mentality. So, between the two, and you need both. I
Very
think,
current subject matter.
For this play. Yes, maybe the relationship falters in the play because it's in the 80s and it might have been okay today. But I think the issues in the play continue to be very current today, whether or not we're talking about male dominance over women as a sign of masculinity, or in my view, a president who believes that we have to be kind of aggressively masculine with North Korea or the, Muslim countries or whatever. I feel like we are very much make America and butterfly again.
I'm with you on that.
The performance is a tour de force by Clive Owen.
Yes.
He's on stage virtually the whole time.
The whole time.
In the old play, he didn't have to be on stage the whole time, but Julie really wanted him on stage.
No, I think he has to, because this is all fragments of his mind.
Yeah.
That's in the visual concept. It starts in a cell, and the cell you see it right from the beginning when the party comes into the cell, and then it just starts to expand until we're in China, and those metal walls open to gold screens with bamboo and trees and
then you have beautiful theatrical Chinese visuals
taking opera.
which come in. Yeah.
Well, this is another thing that I felt strongly about, that David's play takes us right through the Cultural Revolution. Mm-hmm. And it felt important to me that we fully visualize the Peking opera and the beauty of ancient China and all the artistry of the costumes, the movement, the masks or the makeup, and see that before you see how that is absolutely demolished into these carbon copy soldiers with their rifles, and even though they're on toe shoes, but that is part of the tradition of the Red Army Ballet. And we had a great choreographer, Ma Kong, who is Chinese from China, who grew up not during that time, but he was in the Red Guard Ballet. He knew Peking opera, so we had really great, authentic collaborators in that, and a great musician as well who could play to it. But you needed to see that world, because we too easily just condense it into Maoism and that kind of all the Chinese in the Mao suits. But if you see the beauty and the delicacy of the world that is then wiped out, it's a much fuller picture of what Asia meant. And you'd understand why Gallimard, the lead character, would be drawn to it. It's not just the word exoticism. He goes into that culture. He goes to the back streets. He comes to the opera, and we do it. We show it. So that the whole concept of metamorphosis and transformation is woven into it, not just literally the story, but into the set design. I very much wanted to do David's script, and I think his script is cinematic. So whatever we do, highly theatrical, no machines, no automation, one projection, but it's not even really a normal projection. It's all hand done.
Yes.
It's pure theater. And what were there, 37 scene changes in the first act alone? He says it's not visual, so you do it.
Right. Yes, she counted them.
I counted them because we had to do it.
The music, by Elliot Goldenthal, and the soundscape, is that Is that original music or is that adapted?
Well, you have Puccini.
Yes, of course,
You know,
yes.
and you had that,
Yeah.
but all Elliot's music is original. And he's going to me, you know, because he's my partner, a longtime collaborator, he's going, I have to write Peking opera? I mean, it takes, are you kidding me? So this is and that's not, David's like, yeah, there's a Peking opera. Now go do
guys
it.
figure it
Now
out.
you guys figure it out. So yes,
Not my
he wrote
department.
all of that himself. It's original, and except for Zhang Peng, who's a fabulous percussionist,
Yes.
a Chinese percussionist.
The guy
there.
up in the-
Yes,
yeah.
who's doing to the dancers, he is accompanying them the way Peking opera is accompanied. So that's got to be live every night. But the score that's underneath that, Elliot's playing everything. I mean, and no, he had a great, we did get some specialists to come in, but it's all his music. And sometimes he'll take the Puccini and you won't even recognize the Puccini because he's reorchestrated it with Chinese instruments or slowed it down or put it backwards. So it's a very coherent score as well.
It's wonderfully theatrical. Do not miss it, M. Butterfly at the Court Theater. Thank you so much, playwright David Henry Hwang. Thank you, director Julie Taymor. Thank you, guest co-host Donna Hanover.
Thank you.
Lovely for your initial run here on Theater Talk. We'll have you back soon.
Thank you.
All right. See you next week, everyone. Thank you. Our thanks to the Friends of Theater Talk for their significant contribution to this production. Theater Talk is made possible in part by the Frederick Lowe Foundation, the Corey and Bob Dinelli Charitable Fund, the Noel Coward Foundation, Carrie J. Fries, the Dorothy Strelson Foundation, and the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs.
We welcome your questions or comments for Theater Talk. Thank you